So far I have shown you the value of GM, how I have derived this value. There are two GMs, one is for linear condition and another one is for saturation condition. So please do not confuse. GM linear we won't use probably, and may use maybe, but not that readily. But GM saturation is very important. And I also have shown you the graph of IDS versus VDS in linear region, and this graph looks like this. However, remember this part is not valid because after VGS minus VT, if it becomes if your VDS becomes greater than this value, you reach into the saturation region and it has a separate equation, right? After that it is like it starts saturating. But this curve will give you the idea why your graph looks like this, your actual output characteristic looks like this. Okay, then I have shown you the value of R1, which is also important, which is in linear or triode region. I also have said why we call it linear. In deep triode region, I mean in this very less VDS value, you will find it is almost or maybe linear. The characteristics almost linear, perfectly linear. Okay, so this thing I have already discussed. Then I have shown you what is the GM value in saturation region, which is very important. It is a function of IDS. And also I have shown if you replace from this equation, if you first find out what is the value of VGS minus VT and replace the same in this, you will find another GM value which is 2 beta n IDS. Okay. And then I also have discussed the output resistance. Remember, in case of current calculation, we say lambda is very small and we neglect this term as if lambda is 0. But we cannot do this in case of output resistance calculation, because essentially lambda 0 in output resistance means your characteristics is totally parallel or flat or totally parallel to x-axis, which essentially say that your output resistance is infinite, which is physically not possible. That's why in fact numerically also you have lambda term in the denominator. So if lambda equal to 0, R0 becomes infinite. So in this case we cannot neglect lambda. However, in case of current calculation, if we keep lambda, thing becomes complicated. So we just leave that term. Then I have shown you the comparison between BJT and MOSFET, especially the GM by IC comparison. So you have seen that BJTs are superior in performance in terms of GM and gain and bandwidth, but there are drawbacks like BJTs has very less input impedance or input resistance. At the same time, BJTs require a lot of power, so power is another concern. The third concern is based on fabrication, that is large scale integration, which is not possible for BJT because of this fabrication limitation. However, in case of MOSFET, you can do VLSI and in fact go for ULSI and even higher. Okay, higher scale integration. I have discussed the limitation of MOSFET and have shown you that for small signal analysis, your VGS should be less than 2 into VGS minus VT, and also said that in this case at least your VGS value can go up to 20 millivolt, 30 millivolt. If you take a typical this VOB value is as 200 millivolt, which is VOB means this VG minus VT. So more or less 20 millivolt, 30 millivolt, 40 millivolt you can go, but in case of BJT you cannot reach up to that level because your input value should be less than 26 millivolt in case of BJT. However, this product GM VGS value will always be less in this MOSFET case. Okay, then the equivalent circuits are shown, and here I would like to say another thing. I said that we want IDS to be in the form of GM VGS in case of small signal analysis. If you see the entire equation, this is non-linear, right? It's not a linear equation, it's a non-linear equation. Another purpose of neglecting this term is to make the equation linear. In fact, both the things are same. If I say I want IDS equal to GM VGS in this form, that is y equal to mx plus c. And here also we are doing this by neglecting this term. So this is our purpose. Okay, why we neglected this term? This is another purpose, because analog circuits are linear, I said. So there is a tendency of making characteristics linear. Okay, so that's why we also neglected this term. So this is just another perspective. I just got when I saw this, I just felt like sharing it with you. So now we will see the gain. So far we have seen the equivalent circuit as well. Now we will see what is the gain. Now in this case, your input voltage is VGS, right? The gate to source voltage is your input. Here it is given. Your input voltage is VGS. Okay. Now your output, if you look at this circuit, what is your output voltage? This is GM VGS current. So your output voltage will be I into R. So your I is GM VGS. The minus sign is because of direction, into R0, right? This is your output voltage. So this is what I have written, V0 GM VGS into R0. Just replacing this VGS with Vin, which I have said this is your Vin. So this is basically minus GM R0 into Vin. So your Vin by VO by Vin, that is output voltage by input voltages, which is known as gain, is equal to minus GM R0. So this is the intrinsic gain of a MOSFET, this structure, whatever I have shown. So this is the intrinsic gain. Why I say intrinsic gain? This is the gain which is in the circuit itself. I mean in the IC itself. Okay. However, your actual gain will depend on this RD value. Okay, I'll come to that. But here I would like to say that this is your intrinsic gain. Now, if you replace the value of GM and R0, which we already have derived, GM is 2 IDS by VOB over voltage, and R0 is 1 by lambda IDS. Just replace these two, you'll find IDS is getting cancelled, and you have 2 by lambda VOB, or 2 by lambda VGS minus VT. This is essentially VOB, right? So, in this case, your GM R0 value is 2 by lambda VOB. Okay. Now, if you take typical values of this, what is the value of GM? Will be a few milliampere per volt, and for R0 it will be in some mega ohms. So if you see this GM R0 value, so you will get something around mega ohm means 10 to the power 6, and milliampere means 10 to the power minus 3. So it will be some in kilo, that means 1000, in the range of 1000. However, in practice, you won't get a gain up to 1000. It will be around, say, 200, 300. That's why we say this is the intrinsic gain, the maximum possible gain that is possible, the maximum possible gain that you can get. However, in practice, it will be around 100, 200, or say maximum 250, 300, something like that. Okay. Now, let us look at this circuit. If you place this RD term in the equivalent circuit of this, where will it come? The RD term is towards output, right? And in AC, we actually consider this grounded. So your RD is basically between the drain, this is source, this is gate. So between drain and ground, you have RD. So you will have an RD over drain and ground, because source is grounded. So between drain and ground, you have RD. I think I have a slide for that. Yes, here. So this is drain, this is gate, this will be source. So between drain and ground, this is for AC, there will be RD. So actually the current that flowing through this GMVS will be flowing through R0 and RD as well. So RD will come in parallel to R0. So whatever expression I have shown you here, this R0 is not now R0. It is actually R0 parallel RD. Now if you put a smaller value of RD, the whole combination will go down. So that's why I said that the intrinsic gain is not equal to the gain that we get, because this RD is up to you which value you are going to put. This is outside the atmosphere, right? So that is why I just mentioned. So just wanted to tell you. However, this is the intrinsic gain equation that you remember, but keep in your mind there might be trick questions. Saying that value of RD. Okay, so that you should know. Now whatever I am teaching is actually giving you a connection between circuit and device, which is very important before we directly go to the circuits. So initial few lectures I am taking because we need a proper connection between device and circuit, and believe me, these lectures will be very much helpful in your competitive examinations as well as the examination that you will face for this normal course. But in competitive examination also you will find these are very important. There are some conceptual questions that will come which will be much clearer to you. At least you can guess in multiple choice questions. So these tricks you should remember. Okay. The next thing that we have is the capacitance in the MOSFET. Now if you look at the MOSFET device, you have a oxide sitting over here which will provide a capacitance effect or capacitive effect in this region between gate and bulk when there is no channel. So I already said this value is known as Cox because of this oxide present here, and the value I said it is Cox equal to epsilon ox by Tox. Remember, in this case the capacitances are capacitance per unit area. And why we are calculating capacitance per unit area in this case? Because from device perspective, if you see, in device we are mostly interested in charge density. So you know Q equal to CV, right? We are interested in charge density, that means surface charge density. Surface charge density means Q by area. So if you write here surface charge density, then this whole equation is not dimensionally correct, because in both the sides the dimensions are not equal. That's why we also consider here capacitance per unit area, and it makes it dimensionally correct. So even in this case, that is why we are only considering capacitance per unit area. Then it is easier for using those terms directly into different equations, at least in case of device. Okay, so now this is your Cox when there is no channel. This is the only capacitance between G and B. And if there is a channel, if you find there is a channel, then you will find the capacitance between the channel and the gate. However, there is some resistance which will be present in the bulk or substrate, but we generally ignore it. It's very less. There is no point in considering all this and making things complicated. So we generally ignore that. Okay. However, apart from this, you will see that there are different other capacitance between gate and drain, because this is your drain, this is your gate. So you will have a capacitance between them. You will have a capacitance between gate and source. You will see some of the oxides are overlapping, so you will find some capacitive effect over there as well. Apart from this, you will have some capacitance between source and bulk, drain and bulk. And what are these capacitance? These capacitance are reverse diode capacitance, as we also discussed in case of BJT in certain cases, right? Why it is reverse diode? If you look at the structure, this is your P substrate, then you have N plus here, and this is P. So this junction is basically PN junction. And the way we bias, this junction is always in reverse bias, right? Your source is generally grounded, your bulk is generally grounded. Now this device is off. So you know when diode is in off state, it is generally in reverse bias. You need a certain voltage to make it conductive. 0.7 volt for silicon diodes. 0.65 or 0.7. I'm just giving you the number. So in this case, this is reverse biased, and in case of drain, it is generally positive, connected to positive potential. So this is highly reverse biased. So you'll find there is a huge depletion layer forming compared to this. So this is highly reverse biased. So you have this SB and DB capacitances are generally reverse bias capacitance. That's why CSB and CDB I have written the reverse bias capacitances. Okay, so two capacitances that are present between the drain and bulk and source and bulk are generally reverse bias capacitances, and these and it depends on the reverse bias voltage that is applied. Okay, so higher the reverse bias voltage, lower will be the capacitance. Why? Because if you increase the reverse bias, your depletion layer will increase. That means D will increase, and your C is epsilon A by D. If D increases, C decreases. Right? So it's so simple. If you increase the reverse bias, your capacitance will increase. Capacitance will decrease if you increase the reverse bias voltage. Now, whether it is good or bad, if your capacitance is increasing, this is good, or if your capacitance is decreasing, that is good. So, in a word, will you prefer a smaller capacitance or larger capacitance? So, the answer is, what matters in your circuit is Z, right? 1 by j omega C. So, higher capacitance means smaller impedance. So, it depends on where your capacitance is connected. If your capacitance is connected, say, in series with something, what you need? If you want this to be short circuited, you need a less impedance, so higher capacitance is preferred. If it is in parallel, so your signal is coming from here, you don't want the signal to shunt, right? In this case, you need higher capacitance, right? In series, you need lower capacitance so that everything flows in, and in this, you need higher capacitance. But it depends on your preference. So whether it is higher is good or lower is good depends on where exactly that capacitance is appearing and what is your intention to do with this circuit, right? So it is not a straightforward answer. However, you should remember, if C is high, your Zin is low, and if C is low, Zin is high, the opposite. Okay, so you have CSB and CDB values, which is essentially the reverse bias capacitance, and these are the built-in potentials of source bulk and drain bulk junction. Okay, what about the CGS and CGD? That is CGD here and CGS here. Now let us see the equivalent circuit here I have shown. So this is your MOSFET, and your capacitances are like between G and S you have a capacitance. G and D you have a capacitance. Between G and S you have another capacitance. Between D and B you have one capacitance, and between B and S you have another capacitance. Remember, there is another capacitance between G and B. This is CGB, that is COX, the oxide capacitance. However, it gets distributed to G and S when it is in operation. When there is no channel, it is fine. The COX is the only one. Otherwise, it will get distributed to the other two capacitances, GD and GS. And how are they distributing? If the device is working in linear mode, they will distribute it equally. Actually, the capacitance that is appearing here will not be same in each point. There are infinite number of capacitance because your channel is It is not necessary that your channel is throughout homogeneous or uniform. So you'll find infinite number of capacitance. But for the sake of modeling, what we say is, when it is in linear mode, give half of the Cx to the source side, half in the drain side. So your CGS and CGD is half Cox Ag and half Cox Ag. So equally distributed. Ag is the area of the gate, which is W into L. Why W into L? Let me go to the 3D picture of the, okay, this is the 3D picture, right? So here you have L and here you have W. As it is a rectangle, what is the area of rectangle? Area is length into breadth. So here breadth is omega, not omega, it's W, okay? Here breadth is W and your length is L, okay? So that is why we said that the value should be half Cox Ag, and all these are capacitance per unit area. And why it is capacitance per unit area, I already explained. Because in device, the charge density that is people use a lot. So that is why your capacitances that you are considering is actually capacitance per unit area. So this is your CGS and CGD in linear mode. So the total C in is basically the summation of both, because these two are in parallel. When capacitances are in parallel, you do summation of the capacitances. So you are actually getting Cox into Ag, so Cox into W into L. However, in saturation, if you look at the saturation condition, what happens? This is your N plus, this is your N plus, this is your drain, this is your source. What happens? In case of saturation, your channel is going to reduce like this, right? So most of your Cox will appear towards source side. However, in the drain side, you will find a depletion capacitance due to the formation of depletion layer, which is increasing, right? So in such a condition, we assume that 2/3 of Cox is appearing towards GS. However, the total C in we consider as Cox into WL. This is just an assumption. This is not very accurate, but this works very well in the modeling. Okay, if you start considering everything in the modeling, it will become so difficult to solve these things that a lot of unnecessary calculation will come in, which probably is not that much required. So what people found is, if you take C in is equal to Cox into WL, it's sufficient. But you should know that in saturation, because of this effect, most of the capacitance appear towards source side. Okay, so I hope this part is visible to you. I hope. Okay, so this is the condition. Okay, so you have CGS and CGD. Now it is clear that why something is appearing towards source and why something is appearing towards drain. And these two values I already have discussed, they are reverse diode capacitance, just like previous. In this case, we have considered the step graded junction. That's why we are taking value equal to half. These are n values, right? So these values we have taken equal to half. Okay. Now we already have discussed WT in case of BJT. So what will be the WT in this case? Now we know WT is equal to GM by C in. We have seen in the BJT. So same thing is here. So if you take FT, 1 2 pi term will come. Okay. Now what we do in such a case, we short the output, right? This is the circuit more or less. So we short the output and then we calculate the I0 and whatever is the I in, then we calculate the value. So what matters here is the capacitance. So this capacitance value is very important for the bandwidth, right? So if you look at this circuit and if you see here, if this output side is shorted, we can say that CDB and CSB is equal to 0. We can get rid of these capacitances, right? However, in the input side, you will find that CGD, CGS, they are in parallel, and you also have CGB, right? Now when there is no channel, you will see this is the only thing that is dominating, CGB, which is equal to Cox. But we are operating the device at saturation, so we are more interested in saturation region. So there is no point in calculating the WT in any other regions, because there will not be any amplification. So why should I? Anyways, we are not operating in cutoff, and linear is not the region where we should operate. So we will only concentrate in saturation. Now in saturation region, I just said here that your CGS will be dominating. However, the total input resistance can be taken as Cox into WL. That's why I just considered here CGS, and the total capacitance is Cox into WL, more or less. It should be 2/3, but however we just neglecting, because anyways there is a capacitance because of depletion layer formation, so it will also add to it. So as an approximation, we are saying that this value is Cox into WL. Okay, so these are not accurate values. These values will help us to find out different circuit parameters, and circuit values will help us to design some circuits. Okay, so even if there is some approximation, that is fine. Okay, we can get rid of those complications just by taking some approximations. Okay, so these values I have added. It's not necessarily all of them are dominant every time. Whatever is dominant will come into the picture, right? So the other value we can neglect, but as an expression I just showed that all threes are kind of an addition. Okay, and because they are in parallel as well, so they'll appear as a addition. But remember this thing, whenever whichever capacitance is dominant, you just take that part. Other part, if not mentioned, if it is mentioned clearly, you should take. If it is not mentioned while designing, you can neglect. Remember, if somebody mentioned that you take CGD equal to this, take CGS equal to this, then you have to take. They are kind of assumption. In some of the problems they may say, but I'm talking about practical designing part. Okay, that is the thing. Okay, so we will discuss this small signal model, and we will once recap this whole thing, and we'll start that small signal equivalent circuit. Okay.